There are loads of edible plants that grow in swamps. A lot of them are very similar to the grassland plants, but today I want to do a specifically swamp foraging video. And swamps are generally places that have saturated ground, often low-lying, like on the floodplain of a river or anywhere where water collects and the soil doesn't really have time to dry out. And that would also include shallow water bits of ponds as well. So I'm going to have a look around and see what we can find. In this area that's normally like a shallow pond, there's just the first thing that you see here is there's loads and loads of this spearwort, which looks like a buttercup, and it is in the ranunculus family, but it's like an aquatic type of buttercup. And definitely you can't eat this or any other buttercup, but there's just so much of it. And then looking around, I can see quite a few of these little water forget-me-nots still flowering. They've almost finished now with these very little blue flowers. That one's a bit more out still. But whilst you can use the other forget-me-nots, the land-based ones, use the flowers and things as a garnish on food, it's not so advised to do with these ones as well. But there are some way more useful plants here, like this water mint, Mentha aquatica, and this just seeds itself all over the place. It's in full flower now, really the best time to collect it. And what I do is I just pick a bit like this that's sort of coming into flower, and I get a whole bunch of them and then I hang them up out of sunlight somewhere sort of cool and dry, and then they're just dry, and then I've got them all year round then. But it's just like the garden mint really, it's just like it just grows in water, and it's very common. And you can sort of tell by these distinctive little purple flower heads here, and then this very mint-like kind of slightly different to the garden mint, very sort of like slightly hairy leaves, and all is in like pairs and with little side shoots coming out. Now this can be used in cooking. It's very good for loads of things. It's one of those plants that has a massive list of herbal uses, and you can see how common it is. It's just like spreads by these roots underground, and it's like a herbaceous perennial, completely dies back in the winter. Look at all this, it's just lovely. It's good for any respiratory conditions, it's good for stress, it's good for skin, it's good for loads of things. It's a very, very useful herb. And it will take from cuttings, and you can dig it up in the winter and plant some somewhere else. But it kind of seeds itself all over the place. It's incredibly common, and a very, very tough kind of pond plant. It will grow in, at least sort of 8 inches of water. Here it's like on just a boggy bit of ground. But then the first bits that we saw, they were growing in where it's about a foot deep there, so they can tolerate boggy or in water, and they'll really grow well in ponds. And then there's meadowsweet, another very, very common plant. It's another like herbaceous plant. It comes from Western Asia, Europe and North Africa, and it grows in sort of sun or shade really. You get it in woodlands, and you get it in here, it's like in a really sunny swamp. It doesn't like growing in water, but it will grow in saturated ground, especially in seasonal swampy bits that like swampy half the year. And it's got edible leaves, edible flowers and edible roots. It's very easy to spot because it's got these little fluffy white flowers, and they might look a little bit like umbelliferous plants, but they're not. And the flowers aren't the same at all. They're all on little weird little queerly stems like that, and they look kind of like a white mist going through the swamp. They are incredibly common. They're good for rheumatism, digestion, urinary tract, all sorts of things, and just very, really common herb. This is an interesting looking herb. It's the white horehound, Lycopsis europea, and it likes growing in damp meadows and sort of waterlogged kind of swamps and things. And unfortunately it doesn't have a great many uses. It was in the past used as a cough mixture, but it's not thought of as a good thing to use. And the roots are considered a famine food, and not generally used for consumption, but it is kind of an interesting plant, very kind of mint-like, very kind of interesting leaves that are sort of this weird zigzaggy kind of shape. and then these little patches of flowers like around where each like pair of leaves are, and they're going up into quite a long spike. I've never seen these get more than like 3 feet high, but they seem to always grow near much bigger plants. So does it have a smell or anything? No, not quite, a sort of slightly unpleasant smell. And yeah, there's quite a few of them. They come from Europe, Western Asia, North Africa again. And yeah, you sort of, they're one of those plants you don't notice straight away, but once you do notice them, you notice there are quite a few of them all over the place. But yeah, unfortunately not a great deal of uses for foraging or medicine. There is a lot of bindweed that finds its way onto swamps. And here the ground is saturated and still the bindweed grows quite happily. Don't eat this, it's not good to eat at all, but I just cut it back off anything it's strangling. It tends to sort of grow up and strangle. It twines its little stems around everything, and then it kind of just smothers. So strangle and smother, but definitely don't eat bindweed. But also, you do get quite a lot of stinging nettles growing on swamps. Here's one being strangled by a bindweed. Now, stinging nettles are very, very useful plants. You can eat the roots and the leaves, and there's you can eat the flowers. I eat the flowers, but some people don't eat the flowers, and because they don't sting as much when they're having their flowers. And you could just fold in all this, because the stings are on these little pointy bits at the end. So you just fold all those in like that, making sure none are sticking out, into a little ball, and then you can eat it without being stung. But you can also dry it and or cook it, and that will take away the stings. And stinging nettles are really like a preventative medicine for loads and loads of things. They have literally pages and pages of medicinal uses. They're good for like body organs, hair, skin, all sorts of things. You know, just like almost everything. It's like garlic. They have as many herbal cures as garlic. And they're like a herbaceous perennial. They've got these underground roots. They're quite weedy and seed themselves everywhere. But they have a great many uses, and yeah, they're quite happy on a swamp. See, these ones are just growing off the swamp. They're a bit bigger. But yeah, this bit's a seasonal swamp, so it's not boggy at the moment, but it's boggy for maybe 6 months of the year. And the stinging nettles do fine in this kind of environment. So yeah, loads of them here, and they grow like all over the swamp and not in the ponds part. And then over here we have great hairy willow herb. This one is also being strangled by bindweed here. Just pull it off there, and you can see it's just like the rose bay willow herb, but it's hairy, and you see all the stems and the leaves are all furry. Now, I don't think this one tastes as nice as the rose bay willow herb, but you can eat just about all parts of it. You can eat the seed pods, the flowers. You see when they form the seed pods like at the bottom of the flower, and then it sort of grows bigger when the flower drops off. Just try a seed pod. It's a bit chewy. The flower is quite nice, but not as nice as rose bay willow herb. It's one of these very, very tall willow herbs, and it's got these, like, it's a perennial, so it's got these underground rhizomy roots, which you can dig up and use as a thickener in the winter. But the leaves and the stems and the young shoots and just about everything is edible, and the pith of the stem can be used as a thickener. So they're kind of a useful plant. And the flowers do look nice on salads, and they come from a bit of North Africa, Europe, and right across Asia as far as Korea and up to Siberia. They've got a very, very big range, and they're naturalized in lots of parts of the world as well. And yeah, they get really tall. They can get 7 feet high, and they won't grow in the water, but they will grow in this like semi-saturated ground that's like half saturated damp meadows. You really see them more on waste ground and places where it hasn't been touched for a long time. Quite often get them on at canals and roadsides and railway lines and things like that. But yeah, they're quite a common plant, and they sort of spread into these very big clumps like this. And then we have hemp nettle here, which is an annual plant, very kind of mint-like, and it's flowering at the moment, very mint-like sort of terminal little flower heads. There's just loads of disagreement about this one. Some people say you can eat the flowers and the leaves, and other people say you can't. So, but you can use the herb to make a tea for for respiratory disorders. But apart from that, probably not anything. And this one tends to seed itself on disturbed ground. Now this land here was devastated by next door's pigs when they were getting in here. And all the ground was dug up, and almost all the other plants in this bit were all just like completely destroyed. But then in the bare ground, loads of this hemp nettle has seeded itself. And it's one of those things that colonizes newly dug up ground or disturbed ground. So it's like a kind of first plant to arrive often on disturbed ground. And here there's loads of it. And in fact here it's taller than me. So it's well, not almost taller than me. So it can grow really, really tall. And if I just look in there, you see it's just nothing else but it. So very common plants. You get it in Europe and Asia, and it likes growing in disturbed ground. And then if I fight my way through here and there's the odd valerian just sort of growing up. Most of them have finished flowering, like these ones, and they turn into these little fluffy seeds that are carried in the wind. And Valeriana officinalis, it comes from Europe and Asia, and it's got an incredible habitat. It will grow here in a swamp. It won't grow in the water, but it will grow on this half saturated ground. But it will also grow on hedge banks, it will grow in meadows, it will grow in woodland, it will grow anywhere. It's a very tough plant. It's a perennial plant, and the main use it has is when it dies back in the winter, you could dig up some of the roots and dry them, and they are very good for sleep, anxiety, depression, nervous issues, things like that. And the dosage is 2 teaspoons of the dried root steeped for a quarter of an hour, and then that's very good. But it works with sleep. It works for some people but not for others. It can send some people's mind racing, but others it sends to sleep. It's kind of strange. It has a different effect on different people. And you can kind of eat the flowers a bit. Yeah, okay, you can eat the odd flower, but generally it's really medicinal, the roots. And it's a very common little plant. And yes, more of it over here. You see the divided leaves it has. You see that one? I have to get another one. So it has these leaves like this, which are divided into pairs of leaflets with 2 or 3 kind of half conjoined leaflets at the end, like that. So they're quite easy to identify. Not to be confused with that awful stuff that grows in walls, which isn't the same at all. But this is proper valerian, and Valeriana officinalis, and it's a very kind of nice, colourful herb that flowers right throughout the summer, and you can always find it in these kind of around the edges of swamps and even in swamps sometimes. And then of course there's willow trees. You always get willow trees somewhere on a swamp. Now the leaves of willow trees are said to be edible. Let's try a little bit. So probably not that nice. And the inner bark is also said to be edible. But their main use is like a painkiller. The bark can be used as a painkiller for headaches. You could chew a bit of bark for headaches, and it's good for like muscle pain and all sorts of things like that. But willows are very common on swamps, and they are kind of like a colonizer of swamps, because as they get bigger they fall over and root in and layer themselves into the ground. So they are kind of like the reforestation of the swamp. They kind of they come first, and then all the trees sort of follow them, and so they're the changing point of the swamp into a woodland. So you can see this one here has already started leaning that way, and when it gets heavier in the saturated ground, it will fall over, and then you'll have a whole load of them. So I might trim that back a little bit, but now it's okay. They're very, very flexible branches, willow trees, and yeah, they're kind of very good for like basket weaving and things like that. So it has lots of uses, the willow tree, but I want to keep this swamp not as a woodland really, so that's going to be trimmed back at some point. And then there's these horrible things. Indian balsam is a nasty invasive weed. It comes from Punjab, Kashmir, sort of Himalaya area, and it's an annual plant. Just got to pull it up. It grows only in sort of damp places, not in the water, but it will grow kind of in riverbanks and down the sides of riverbanks. This is like on a floodplain again. It's sort of saturated half the year, yeah, it's a horrible great thing. Hollow stems. If I just break that, you see there's like hollow stem, just chuck that somewhere where it can't root in and grow, and get all the roots off this. This stuff can really take over a swamp, and I've gone over a few times this year and pulled all the ones I could see out, but there's always some that escape your attention. Horrible thing, but they're a half-hardy annual. They die back as soon as the frosts come, but if they're allowed to seed, then the seeds like catapults, like there's a few developing seed pod there. Can you see that one? And when that gets bigger, if you just touch it, it goes ping and hurls these seeds a long way in all directions. Now, if I just half break them and just hang them up like that in a tree, then they'll just dry and die there. But there's awful things, and they weren't here at first, and they've gradually spread up the valley. And the farmer over the road, I don't think he even knows they're there, and they just like spread right up all the way. So every year I have to just pull them all up and spend ages just pull them up, shake off the soil, and then half break them like that, hang them up in a tree branch, and then there's just always like to get rid of them before they flower, because that one hasn't come up with the root. So you always make sure you get the root, because they'll just grow another bit up from the root. Oh, I can't even see where that was. Oh, there's one. Yeah, so you always get little sneaky ones as well. So they are quite elusive, but it's very good to get rid of them. But you can use the leaves or the flowers to treat burns, and some people will eat these, the seeds, the flowers, the leaves, but then other people disagree and say you can't. So there's a bit of a disagreement there. But there's one of the worst invasive weeds we've got for swampy areas, so very good to destroy on site. And just up here is another little shrub tree which likes growing around the edge of swamps. There's Gelder Rose here, which is kind of by Burnham, and it doesn't like grow right in very, very swampy, but it'll grow kind of on riverbanks and the seasonal swampy areas. And the berries aren't edible, but you can make them into jams and things. If you cook them, they are edible. But it's the bark that's generally used for cramps and muscle pain and things like that. It's Gelder Rose comes from Europe, then into Central Asia and a little bit of North Africa, and it doesn't get all that tall, maybe 15 feet or so. Has nice flowers in the spring, and then there's berries that usually come a little bit later, and then they go really nice colour in the autumn. They're kind of nice in hedges or in under canopy. Here it's just growing in a overgrown hedge, and they kind of they spread a bit by layering themselves into the ground as well, so one branch will touch the ground and root in, and they are quite a prolific tree and very good as sort of a lower level of under canopy in the woods. But they do have three kind of things of interest: the colourful leaves, the colourful berries, and the colourful flowers. So they kind of a very kind of colourful tree, and often the leaves start turning their autumn colours very early and then gradually turn and go a number of different colours before they eventually drop off. So a very nice tree to have in any woods or hedge, and they will tolerate kind of semi-wet ground. And here is some nipplewort. You don't normally find this growing on swamps, but this one is. It's like lots of branching stems of tiny little like dandelion type flowers, and it's yeah, it's sort of quite annoying, like weed on vegetable gardens and things, but you often see it in hedges and sometimes in grassland. Usually likes kind of disturbed ground. Now this one, the leaves are edible, but they're very, very bitter. I was going to eat a little tiny bit. Ugh, that's nasty. And the flowers are edible, but they're even more bitter. But they're apparently nicer cooked. And this one, yeah, Europe and Asia again. and it gets, I can get about kind of 4 feet I suppose, but it's usually about 2 feet tall, and it's good for respiratory disorders and sores and things like that. So it has a few uses, and you can eat it, but it's not probably one of the most tasty plants you can find. There's a few other bits of it here. There's a much taller one here, so that one's like 4 feet tall. So yeah, very easy to find and quite edible, but not tasting very nice. Here there's a load of this hedge woundwort. There's quite a few different types of these woundworts in the stachys family, and this is another edible one. Usually you find the marsh woundwort growing in swamps. Let's try this one. It's okay. Whoa, that's got a really strong smell. It's yeah, the other one's scented as well. That smells really, really strong. Now this is very good for any kind of pain or wounds or anything, and so you can eat it or apply it. It stops bleeding. It's antiseptic, and this is one of the ones that will tolerate kind of semi-swampy conditions. In fact, this area here is just slightly off the main part of the swamp, and it's still kind of saturated a bit in the winter, so it's not as swampy. And the marsh woundwort will grow in more swampy conditions, and yeah, it's kind of not bad really. If you cook with it, it'll be all right. It's just like a green vegetable, and it's a perennial plant, and it sort of has little roots and it grows into little clumps like this, and it's sort of very kind of mint-like, with these little pairs of leaves, quite long, elongated, like pointy pairs of leaves. One goes this way, one goes that way, one goes this way, one goes that way. So kind of alternate pairs going up the stem. And yeah, I don't think they get much taller than this. And they kind of flop over a bit, but there's loads of it. And you see those top bits have got these very mint-like flowers. And they're much more glamorous than the woundwort, which is the version that likes growing in drier places. But there's a lot of this, lot of different plants from the stachys family. And this is a very nice one, and yeah, quite commonly found growing on swamp edges. There's loads more of it growing all over here, and right over here to the edge of what's the pond. So normally this bit I'm stepping in is about so deep in the winter, so they'll grow right down to the edge of saturated ground. And here we have the water plantain, Alissima plantago. So this is a plant that likes to grow in water. When it's full, it's like so deep. It looks like very good marginal plants in ponds. You often get this sold in garden centres, but all of this arrived naturally and just seeds itself, and it's popping up everywhere. There's another one there. It's a perennial plant, and it has these very long stems of flowers, a bit like gypsophilia. They're nearly sort of over now, but I think it's sending up some more. That's a new one there. And these little leaves like that, sort of quite tough leaves, and the leaf stems and the roots can all be eaten, and they're very nice, attractive plant. They have a very big native range down to quite a bit of East Africa, but also Europe and Asia, and yeah, they're kind of really nice. You see over here, there's another one there. That one's probably a first year one. It's just sort of seeded this year. That'll probably flower next year. And there's another one here. And there's a big established clump. This was the first one that arrived. And that one is much bigger. It's sort of more than 5 feet tall there. I didn't know they got that big. And it's spread into quite a nice little clump there. And here the water is about that height as well. So maybe they just like to have a leaf sticking out of the water. But when the river floods, the water can be kind of any height really, but normally at the highest point the water is like that high. So water plantain is a very nice little plant with some edible bits. It's kind of a useful thing to have in the pond. And then we have this strange looking plant here. This is the unbranched burr reed. It's a bit of a mouthful. It has these little spiky kind of seed pods, which are really weird, and before it flowers it looks just vaguely like a bulrush, but it certainly isn't, and that just looks really, really strange. I've got to go in and have a investigate this one. Just lose the wellies a minute. That one there, don't want them drifting off. Right, so if I just go in here, whoa, a bit cold. Right, this is a very interesting plant, and you can see that it's spread itself all across here. And it seems like there's very shallow bits on the edge of the water. This plant comes from all over the northern hemisphere, so Europe, Asia, America. And if I just get it a bit up, it spreads very much like a bulrush. You see all these rhizomes connecting all these plants together, so it's easy to control. You just lift it up, and here there's a little rhizome which is going up to a new plant. So break that off and lob all that over there. Right, apparently you can eat the young shoots and the rhizomes, so I've got both here. It's alright. Yeah, that's starting to taste quite nice actually. And the leaves are not so nice. The young shoots are nice. So that's quite sweet. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be grim. I wasn't expecting it to be edible either. There's tons of it, and it's supposed to be good for fevers and things. Yeah, all over here, tons of it, just like it's growing in the shallow water. Ah, here's some flowering. If I just get in here, can you see that on the top there? If I try and move these, see this little spike with these little flowers here, and that's it flowering, and then it later comes to these spiky seed heads like that. So that is very interesting. And there's another one which has got some more flowers coming as well. So yeah, very interesting plant here. Unbranched burr weed. And these ones continue all along here. And then over here we have another very, very useful foraging water plant, which is the bulrush. Now, I've done quite a few videos of this one, so just be brief with this one. That's probably not a very nice example, but I have to keep pulling them up. They keep sending out these rhizomes. I want to keep it sort of level with a cherry tree there, so any bits that go out beyond there, I just pull up. Oh, there's a good one. And yeah, I just get in here a bit more and pull up this big one. You can see you've got this network again of rhizomes, which yeah, just connect together. And where you've got a new one, which is going to be a new plant, just peel all this out a bit off. You've got like solid carbohydrate in there, kind of nice. And you can also eat the sort of sweet as well. In the winter you can eat the rhizomes, all of them, but in the summer just the new sprouting rhizomes. And you see that tip would come up and be a new bulrush. So they're very quick growing. And there's like a big one there. And then the inside of the stem here is very much like a leek. You can just use that like a leek. It tastes a bit different, but you can use that as a leek. Very, very useful, high yielding plant, but they do take over a bit. Europe, Asia, well, the whole northern hemisphere really. They call them cattails in America, and they have these distinctive seed heads like that, which tend little loads of wind-borne seeds in the winter. So that's another really useful one. And I have noticed that there's loads of frog bit just growing here. I bought the frog bit last year, just one little piece of it, and I thought it hadn't survived, but it's like growing all over the place. There's loads more of it over here. I just put one little floating piece in the pond, and yeah, there's loads of it. But I really thought it hadn't survived. And you've got these long kind of stems. I don't think there's any flowering yet, so I'll have to film it again when it flowers. You can you see that? There's like a little flower a bit coming up, and they're very much like little kind of lily flowers, little white flowers, and there's another little stem there with some flowers on it. I can't see any flowering at the moment, but it's kind of nice. It's just if I just take a whole stem of it here, it seems to be doing rather well. You see it has little leaves like little mini lily pads that just float on the water. So if I just sort of drift that off, you see it's got little roots, everything there. So if I just like put that over there, you see it will correct itself, and then the leaves will, with a little bit of help maybe, and then it will just drift off, and form a colony somewhere else. That's really good. I didn't think I'd survive, so there's hope for the brandy bottle yet. Here there's loads more of this water plantain. You can see how much better it looks when it's actually in water. But here, the water is much deeper, so it's about here when it's full. So yes, still the leaves are above the full water height, not including river flooding. And then over here, you might be able to see these ones. Another big clump of water plantain there, looking really good. You can find a lot of things actually in the water itself that are really good to eat. Another useful little plant here with floating leaves on the water. Now this is called broad-leafed pondweed, and it's in the vast Pogamodilon family. I can't pronounce that properly, Pogamodilon. But yes, it's like has these long stems floating on the water, not quite so lily-like as the frog bit, but still floating. And you can get this in rivers and ponds. It's quite common, and it comes from the whole temperate part of the northern hemisphere. And yeah, long trailing little stems like that, and it sends down roots and they root in. So if I just get one, and you see here, it sort of just sends off little trailing bits. And if I again launch that over there, that should grow and correct itself like the frog bit did. And then that should be able to form its own little colony. You see it's got a little bit of root there, so if I just helped it out a little bit and just stuck that bit of root in the mud there, and then we've got another little colony. It's so easy, you know, to transplant water plants. Now here the leaves are supposed to be edible, so let's try a little leaf here, a little young leaf, see what that's like. Not really that pleasant. It's not a strong taste, just not very pleasant taste. But yeah, they're supposed to be good for skin conditions and for arthritis. A very plentiful herb, but often quite difficult to get at. It's always in locations like this. So yeah, another kind of useful pond herb there. There are quite a lot of other plants that grow on swamps as well, but that'll be enough for today. So I hope you liked today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please ask. And whoa, a bit deeper there. And I shall see you next time.